Good morning, everyone. It's 9:30 and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by attending the meeting in person at Ilderton Community Center located at 13168 Ilderton Road in Ilderton. Members of the public may also access the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex YouTube channel or by contacting the municipal clerk to receive a registration link to join the meeting electronically. The municipality of Middlesex Center recognizes that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lapewuk peoples. We acknowledge the enduring presence of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people on this land and are committed to moving forward in a spirit of reconciliation and respect. Our neighboring First Nation communities, which include the sovereign nations of the Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. There are no additions to the agenda, so I will look to members of council. Are there any pecuniary items to disclose? Okay, seeing none, then we can move to delegations and presentations. We have 4 today. We're going to start with the Ontario Provincial Police Budget and Costs Review, and Ross Stewart, the Ontario Provincial Ontario Provincial Police, who is here in attendance to provide an overview of the costs for 2025. I'll turn mine off, and when you're ready, then you just go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you this morning to have a discussion with regard to the OPP billing that I know the municipality has now received, specific to 2025. From the outset, I will say that I can certainly appreciate that there are concerns with regard to the information that now the municipality has received, specifically in relation to the increases that not only Middlesex Centre is facing, but that other municipalities across the province are facing. And I can tell you that my other detachment commander colleagues are attend meetings much like this in order to provide some information as well. And I welcome that, and I welcome your questions surrounding this. I will say also that, you know, attending the breakfast meeting yesterday and hearing Madam Mayor speak, I'm very alive to how many competing priorities you folks have when you're managing your budget and projecting what your budget will be for the next calendar year. You know, I heard a conversation with regard to infrastructure upgrades, Timberwalk Park, for example, the upgrades that you want to do to Ilderton Arena, just to name a few of those many things. So as attachment commander for Middlesex OPP, it's not lost on me that the increase that you see in the cost for OPP service is going to have an impact on other priorities. I would like to start by just a very brief reminder as to how the OPP establishes the cost that eventually makes its way to the municipalities for the service that we provide. Our billing model is predicated upon a number of different things. First and foremost, and by far the largest portion of that, relates to what we call base service. Within base service, that is primarily consumed with salaries and benefits for our uniform members, as well as for our civilian members under the Ontario Provincial Police Association. There's also a component to the billing model that focuses on calls for service. And within those calls for service, there's a number of different categories where different types of calls that our officers attend to a bill is attached to those, if you will. So for example, a category 8 call, which may be something like a homicide, which is very labor intensive, a lot of personnel hours associated to it, costs differently than a level 1 call, which would be something like a barking dog complaint or a fence dispute. And it's those types of considerations that go into what the bill looks like and that the municipality receives in relation to calls for service specifically. The third component relates to court security, prisoner transport, costs that the municipality also is billed for. And that's important because it does help to explain in part why you're seeing the increase that you're seeing in your 2025 bill. The primary reason why, if I'm not mistaken, the increase for Middlesex Center is 22.4%, I believe. The primary reason why you're seeing that increase is due to salaries and benefits. I can tell you that 90% of the cost that comes to the municipality for OPP service directly relates to salary and benefits of our members. And notably, the increase that you have before you today is a reflection of the fact that our uniform and civilian members have been without contract since 2022. And the new contract was only ratified this past July 18th. For a 4-year period, 23, 24, 25, and 26. And so part of what you're seeing in your billing is an increase because we're trying to reconcile for all of 23 and half of 24, which has already passed prior to that contract actually taking effect. And that is the lion's share of the reason why you see the increase before you today. I will also say, though, that the calls for service component, which you may recall is based upon a 4-year average. We do that so that an anomaly in 1 year where you either have a low number of calls for service or a higher number of calls for service will have a balanced impact upon the budget. And simply, we're coming out of COVID-19 and the pandemic, where during those years we did see a decrease in calls for service, not just in Middlesex Center, but across Middlesex County and frankly around the province. And that 4-year average now, we have moved out of the COVID time and we have returned to call for service levels that we saw prior to COVID, and in fact are even exceeding some of those at times. Also, during COVID-19, the courts were closed and we did not have court security or prisoner transportation costs at the same level as you would have had during COVID. And so within that 4-year average, we've now moved away from that back to levels that we saw prior to COVID-19. Again, that plays into the increase that you're facing. So those are the primary reasons why council is faced with this increase. And I'm welcome to answer any questions specific to that.
Thank you, Commander, for the detail. I'll look to council members. I'll start with you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Stewart. Are there any additional costs, like when we have, say there's an investigation into a homicide or anything that you have officers that do specifically that, or reconstruct a car accident on the roads, are we billed extra for that, or is that all inclusive in what we're paying now?
That is an excellent question, Deputy. There's 2 parts to that. If it's something like a fatal motor vehicle collision where we bring in our reconstructionists, that would be one of those 8 categories of calls for service that you would pay. And any resources that we require to manage that call would be absorbed in that static cost for that level. Now, if we get into a more dramatic or larger scale event. And I think a good example would be the Freedom Convoy events that we saw in Windsor or that we saw in Ottawa, where we have mass deployments of officers to the area to support operations. Those are things that come out of a completely different pot of money, and the municipality does not pay for that. So a good example, we had during the Freedom Convoys, I think we were right around 90 additional members from around the province that came to Lambton County to support the Blue Water Bridge and the blockade of the 402. That was a cost that was not placed upon Lambton County. That came out of a totally different pot of money, and in a very real sense, had zero impact whatsoever on their budget. If those types of larger events were to occur here, the same rule would apply.
I have Councillor Arts, and then I saw.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Stewart, I respect the police officers for what the job that you do, and being here representing a budget like this takes a lot of gumption, because you know you're not looked upon kindly. I have when you did the wage increases for 23 and 24, when we received those budgets, did you factor in 0% wage increase, like the new contract? Before the new contract comes into effect, when you budget, do you put any wage, excuse me, any wage increase at all, or you leave it at 0?
Thank you, Councillor. I will say, and I said this to Madam Mayor yesterday, it's easy to come before council when everything is wonderful. It's more important for me to be here in person when there's difficult questions to answer. So I welcome that opportunity, but thank you. So from an OPP standpoint, when we're projecting ahead, whether it's with this collective agreement, past collective agreement, or future collective agreements, the OPP does not forecast when you receive your estimates in the spring. They will not forecast in for what the cost increase will be for salaries if they're in negotiations. They don't apply a crystal ball to that, I guess is maybe a good way to put it. What I will say, though, is that in the cost estimates that you previously received, they did build in a 1% for 23 as well as for 2024. And that was because of the existence of Bill 124, which capped public service employees' salaries at 1% as per the provincial government. So that was built into this, the cost estimates. However, for 2023, our members received a 4.75% increase. So then, there's a 3.7% that was not accounted for in the estimate you would have received earlier this year.
Okay, I've got a couple more. Is that okay? The estimated cost from 2022 to 2023, there's we were out by, that's part of the reasons why the bill is so high too. There's that 132,000 reconciliation. Our estimated cost for 2022 was higher than 2023. How come it dropped? Usually I never seen a budget drop. And that's part of the reasons why we've got this bill too, because there's 132,000 reconciliation, right?
I would have to look at the numbers specific to 2022 and 23, look at calls for service as well to provide an explanation for why there is that difference. My immediate inclination is that at least part of it is the decrease in calls for service during COVID-19, which most certainly during the billing cycles for 2022 and 23 would have been impacted by the decrease in calls for service during that time.
One,
I have Councillor Cates. We have more?
I had one final,
Oh.
but I can wait.
Okay, it might get asked. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor, to Inspector Stewart. I have a couple questions. First of all, I want to say, have huge respect and I'm a very large supporter of emergency services and first responders. And I want to thank you for acknowledging, you know, what you saw yesterday in, the mayor's presentation and all of the issues that we face. Pardon me. Because yes, as part of the budget working committee, staff have been working very, very hard to keep the tax increase at, you know, as minimal as possible for residents in our municipality, and everybody's doing a great job. And so, you know, the numbers are very fresh of what this means and this means, and then to receive this as a direct 2% increase to the tax levy is very, very hard for all we're doing and what we face. So I will leave it to you and maybe Michael, if you discuss that part of it all. But I just want to acknowledge saying that. One of my questions is when you talk about the contract ratification, is the so is this year at the 22.4% increase, is this kind of a catch up from over time from the contract settlement that we're not going to face the same thing again next year, I guess is one of, we shouldn't expect to face the same thing, correct?
That is correct. We are in the process of dealing with the retroactive costs associated to the ratification of the contract in July for the entirety of the 2023 calendar year as well as the 2024 calendar year. So no question whatsoever that that is an element of this, and that I would not anticipate you facing that again, because once that retroactive pay is provided, then we would be current.
Thank you. And sort of the opposite almost of Deputy Mayor Brennan's question about the extra service, you know, costs if we have some big thing happen. What I'm curious about, I always find it interesting to read all of the stats and things that go on in our community as a breakdown. What I'm wondering is, when you get calls for service that are outside of our service area, so our, you know, in my case, an officer that's working in Kamoka gets a call for service outside of that service area, is it calculated or presented in how much time they actually spend outside of our service area? And is there any kind of a price adjustment to that? Or is it the same as the previous answer where it's just all in a pool and you're serving everybody?
That is an excellent question, Councillor. So the answer to that is from the onset of when we receive a call for service through our dispatch center, the call is loaded within the municipality in which it occurs. So, for example, if we were to have an event in Lucan where someone from Kamoka has to be deployed either because the Lucan officers are busy or it requires additional personnel, that call is still loaded and billed as a Lucan call, regardless of where the officer is actually attending from. That even applies to other counties. So we call it borderless policing. And of course, we all have our counties, and I have members that I'm responsible for as the Middlesex County Detachment Commander. But if we were to have an event where we needed resources and all of our members were tied up, we absolutely will place a call to the Lambton members or to the Oxford members, Elgin members, to come and to assist. And in those situations, number one, it ensures that we respond very quickly to that call and it's dealt with appropriately. But that, even if it was an Oxford member attending from Ingersoll, say, it would still be billed to where that call is actually happening. So I guess the short answer is that it's focused upon where the call originates from, regardless of where the officer attends from.
Thank you. And just to follow up through you, Madam Mayor. So just to kind of add to that, and I certainly respect the borderless and all of that. When somebody needs help, they need help. But I'm just wondering if it gets monitored. So for example, Kamoka, because that's my ward, Kamoka Kilworth, is does anybody, yes, it gets billed to Lucan or wherever, but does anybody look at that and go, oh my goodness, do you know how many times there were actually the service was pulled out of that area to go help somewhere else, leaving this? And so that's kind of, if I'm explaining it right, that's sort of the root of my question is the service is all spent over there. And then what about here? Does somebody pay attention to that? Thank you.
Absolutely, we do, on a number of different levels. So one of the things that as an operations team and as a leadership team in Middlesex, we are constantly assessing where our calls for service are happening and where we need to prioritize our members. But that plays into two different categories. So if we are having an influx of calls in Lucan, for example, that's requiring us to pull officers out of Kamoka, we will address that from the outset by upstaffing the Lucan area so that we're not pulling people out of Kamoka. However, if we find that for whatever reason, calls for service in Middlesex Center, for example, are lower, and our officers are being pulled out and they're not having the opportunity to fulfill their expectations in regards to proactive policing, not just reactive, then if our officers are being pulled out of here, we'll upstaff Middlesex Center as well, so that even though we may lose an officer out of Middlesex Center, there's still coverage. So we look at it through both of those categories to make sure that we have coverage on an ongoing basis everywhere. Now, that's not to suggest that if we have a major incident, we won't pull members to it. But that's where the borderless elements will come, because even from a coverage, proactively looking at where we may need coverage, if we were to pull every Middlesex member into Lucan, for example, for a call, we would then be reaching out to our other counties for people to come to Middlesex to cover until such a time as our own local members are then freed up.
I have Councillor Burrs next.
Thank you. Thanks for showing up before us. I know it's tough. I just have a few questions, and it looks like most of the 22.4% is retroactive. It's 23, 24. We're going to budget, it says here 2.75 for 25, and then in 26, another 2.75% increase, correct? So most of this, from what I can see, 4.75, 4.5, and 2.75 are all the past. So one question I have to ask is there's no discussion with the OPP of the price. We just have to accept it due to the fact that this is a negotiated settlement. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's a negotiated settlement, and it's my understanding that those labor costs and labor increases is a static thing.
Thank you. I figured as much. We're not going to get into pulling this part of policing out or adding this or whatever. I think that's inappropriate. Next question for you has to do with if you're looking at reducing costs, and I'm going to tell you, I read the article about the city of London introducing special constables. So you mentioned prisoner transport and maybe port security, but then I looked at what they're paying those officers at $110,000 a year, and I go, what's the point of introducing that unless you're going to save cost? Can you comment on that, the special constable situation?
I don't know that I would comment on the reasons behind London Police Services use of special constables or the cost associated to their salaries or how they determine that. What I will comment on as it relates to special constables from an OPP standpoint, special constables are an important component to what we do. So for example, prisoner transport, we utilize special constables for that purpose. We utilize special constables locally within our court office as a means of a cost saving, if you will, because a special constable has a cheaper wage than a regular uniform officer would, with still being able to perform those tasks with the appropriate training. Now, from the standpoint of us utilizing special constables to attend calls for service, that is not something that we are doing at this time. It is my understanding that the London Police Service is utilizing special constables for that purpose. However, I don't know what the parameters have been placed on with regard to that specifically, sir.
So follow on this contract, like, we're not at the table. This is between the province and the OPP, correct? Okay, so that answers that. Next question is, we're always concerned about paying our costs directly. Are we in a, like you explained some stuff where if it's a special event, it might come under, the money might come under, out of another pool to subsidize it, and I understand it. I think it's a good idea. But can you talk about, are we in a bigger pool where we're subsidizing other areas which may have higher policing costs? Or did you already answer it by saying, if it's not directly here, then we're not being billed for it directly. Those areas are being billed. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. Based on the OPP billing model, you are not paying for calls for service that are happening outside of Middlesex County. You're not paying the salaries for officers outside of Middlesex County.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go next to Councillor Chapuis. Oh, no, it's okay. We have always, I'll come back. Go ahead. What's answered? You're all good. Oh, okay. Okay. You're good too? Okay, then I will take a turn. I just want to ask one quick question. I think I know the answer. Our problem with all of this is obviously that we have one source of revenue for this kind of thing. And those ratepayers are sitting in the room. And we're ratepayers too. So we look at this and we're going, how can we help manage it? I guess the question is, and maybe this is not up to you, maybe we have to take it elsewhere, but if we could spread those raises over a number of years, and we've got a chance to manage a budget, we've made plans for certain infrastructure changes, commitments, and so forth. And now here we are looking at writing a check that's going to cost taxpayers 2% on their taxes, which is a lot of money. And I mean, the only way you really get around it is you have to dump another project, delay this, or completely change a program. So I don't know, do you have any words of wisdom?
Lots of excellent questions and a fair question, Madam Mayor. I actually did make some inquiries prior to a meeting with the previous municipality about this very issue. And what I've been advised by our Municipal Policing Bureau is that questions with regard to any subsidies, any sort of consideration for the timing or managing that over a different time period, the appropriate avenue for asking those questions would be directly to the Ministry of Solicitor General.
Well, I think that's everything. Everyone's nodding. I want to thank you again for coming in person. It's always great to hear. I think it's a hard news to deliver for you, but at the same time, we appreciate the opportunity to have you explain things and present and make sure that we're all clear. So thank you again, Commander Ross. We appreciate your attendance, and we'll see what our next steps will be. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the next delegation, and that would be Kevin Rutley from Select Path. He's in attendance to provide a presentation on our benefits package. I'm going to turn mine off. When you're ready, push the button. The red light will go on, and the floor is yours.
Fantastic to be here. Thanks for the invite. It's fantastic to also see the crowd of civic students from high school here to see our presentations. You always judge the room when you come in and see, okay, well, who am I going to be speaking to? And then 30 people show up behind me. So look forward to our conversation and the presentation. Mayor DeVete and Council, thank you for the opportunity to present employee benefit cost details for your 2025 budget. As we get started, I want to share with you the presentation purpose, which is to provide an overview of the employee benefit program and allow Council to better understand your plan design competitiveness, including cost structure, as well as your overall employee engagement and culture. Your benefit plan provides members 3 unique advantages: access to protection that would otherwise be unavailable individually, support to maintain good health and recover effectively from illness or injury, and protection against unforeseen catastrophic loss. You can think of benefits in 2 parts. Life and long-term disability coverage are fully pooled, and your claims do not directly impact the cost of the program. Costs are influenced by your demographic mix. Short-term disability, health, and dental coverage is self-insured, which means that the consumption of the plan members directly determines the cost of the program. There is an aspect to insurance on that for high risk, for high cost claims after an individual has had $10,000 of claims. The direct correlation means that it is important that your program be managed well and members consume wisely. Highlights of the program. The most recent renewal in March of 2024 saw an increase of 5.5% increase in cost. At that time, the pooled benefits, which is life and long-term disability, saw 13.6% decrease and the establishment of a 24-month rate guarantee through the 2025 renewal. Healthcare ended the last period in a $5,000 deficit, which has grown to just under $16,000 year to date. With some expected high claims and stop loss reimbursements or reimbursement for high cost claims, we hope that this number can net down to 0 for healthcare by March. Within the dental program, the year began with a surplus slightly more than $18,000 and currently shows $16,000 in surplus. So overall, on your current account between health and dental, you have a small surplus. A little bit of a busy slide. Year to date, the program is performing as anticipated with a significant change in the level of drug spend. As illustrated, net health claims have increased from $147,000 in 2021 to over $213,000 in 2024. This reflects a 3-year change in claims of 45% or 14.9% averaged annually. With the annualized year illustrated in the second from right column, it appears the claims increase has been more than cut in half to just 6.1%. So we're decreasing our average increase in cost. Under dental, over 3 years, claims have increased just under 35% or 11.65% annually. The current year projects to increase 14.1%, slightly higher than the 3-year average. Between the periods illustrated in this table, 2021 to 2024, the Ontario Dental Association fee guide has increased compoundedly 24.6%. The ODA fee guide is an annual increase to every dental procedure. So it's true dental inflation. This annual increasing fee guiding has become problematic with a number of employers, and you're not the only municipality that's dealing with this right now. In terms of benchmarking, in the quest to hire and retain good employees in tandem with your wage offering, employee benefits is a significant factor for employees when choosing an employer. Throughout our history with the municipality, we have provided comprehensive benchmarking to allow your administration to make knowledgeable decisions between care and cost. Relative to peer municipalities, including a county and another local municipality similar size, the life benefits trail one of the centers, while the dependent life insurance and both disability programs fare better. Middlesex Center offers what's called a healthcare spending account, which is a separate bank account of funds that the other centers do not. It allows your employees to supplement some of the coverage where there may be gaps or lesser benefits or reached maximums. Within, back one, please. Yeah. Within the drug benefit, which represents over 62% of your overall health claims, the programs amongst your peer groups are relatively the same. Vision and paramedical practitioners. Next slide, please. Coverage represents about 35% of your costs in healthcare claims. The municipality shows favorably on these benefits. I've highlighted a recent change made in the summer in yellow. The vision care coverage was increased from 400 to 500. It puts you slightly ahead of the other municipalities, but with labor negotiations coming up, it'll probably put you right even with them. The maximum of $500 for both massage and chiropractic is set to increase to $600 in 2026. Under dental, recent changes made in July are highlighted. And this allows the municipality to offer a competitive dental offering to the benchmarked employers. Next slide's really busy. So I'm not going to go through all details, but I just want to touch on a few points. As discussed previously, administration has continually improved your employee benefit offering to employees, all while staying focused on properly funding and reserving for future outlays. From this slide, as of March 2024, illustrated in green, since 2008, the program's seen a 19.5% cumulative increase over those 15 years, or an average annual increase of 1.22%. I also draw your focus to the bottom of the page where it illustrates that while providing cost stability and benefit improvements, the program has managed to build a significant surplus from the health and dental refunds and the healthcare spending account refunds. That's your money. The far right column details the recommended changes by benefit, but we'll be discussing that in the coming slide. If you can go back, please. The yellow highlights illustrate the most recent changes that were done in June relative to your diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that were added to the program. So in terms of benefit enhancements, I won't go through all details, but as discussed in the prior rate history, the financial health of the program has been maintained all the while, providing employee benefit improvements along the way. The detail of changes are illustrated. These changes include both the structural and competitive changes made since 2008, as well as the accessibility and inclusion benefits that were added in June, which allows the municipality to commit to what your website states, where, quote, Middlesex Center is committed to an inclusive community and workplace that fosters a sense of belonging to everyone. Although our work with the municipality continues, our efforts alongside your administration has allowed me to sit here today and say that we've built a competitive benefit plan design that has grown with your workforce and created a significant benefit reserve, allowing for long-term stability. We've also maintained an average annual rate increase well below inflation to provide a benefit program that is best in class amongst your peers, meeting the priorities of your inclusive employer and community mandates with cost structures that are stable. So happy to say that we can state the state of your employee benefit program is stable. Within the pooled benefits, life and long-term disability, the rate guarantees that were just put in place, put those rates at a better price than they were in 2017. We do recommend, as a buffer against unforeseen claims surges, a precautionary 10% increase to health and dental benefits. With this increase in costs, we look to rebuild the current account surplus to the required 7% of claims without the need to access the employee benefit reserve. Please note that any increase that you make to health and dental that is not needed or not used funds the surplus and or your employee benefit reserve. It comes back to you. So the changes recommended create an overall change in costs of approximately 7.8%. or $45,000. So allow me to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that, Mr. Utley. I'll look to council. Questions on the presentation? Everybody's nodding that it's okay. I think you covered all of the detail and some, it's clarity. So I think we're all set then. Thank you so much for coming today and giving us the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, see you next year.
Have a great day.
You as well. Next we have Will Nywing and students from Providence Reformed Collegiate here. The presentation, I guess there were two people. I don't have the other person's name. I'm sorry. It's the the principal.
Yes, good
I
morning.
just recall you the principal.
My name is Mike Vanderdy.
Welcome,
And
Mike. Go ahead. I'll turn my mic off and you can do your presentation.
So thank you, Madam Mayor, and to the council for receiving us today for this presentation. So my name is Mike Vanderdy. I'm the principal of Providence. Mr. Nywing is here with us. And I'd just like to introduce our school to you. Mr. Nywing will present the proposal that we have. So I want to say thank you to you for receiving us today and for receiving our students. The students that are with us today are a grade 10 civics class, part of the Ontario curriculum, and for them to come and to observe a municipal council meeting is excellent experience for them. So thank you so much for receiving them today. We'll go to the next slide. So Providence Reformed Collegiate is an association of parents and a community, a religious community, a Christian community that is working to educate the next generation. Our association has approximately 160 members. They are the parents of current students or the parents of past students, but also a broader supporting community that's working together to provide a specific type of education for their students, their children. So next slide. We are a high school, grade 9 to 12 secondary school. We have approximately 110 students. We offer courses towards the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, so we are a fully inspected and accredited school. Under the Education Act, we are listed as a private school. We see ourselves as an independent Christian school, really just an association of like-minded parents seeking a specific type of education for their teens, and that our families are coming from the Reformed and Presbyterian Christian tradition. We are a school in Kamoka. We're at 93 Queen Street. We first started as a school in 1997 in the town of Kamoka, and we moved to our current facility, which we built in 2002, and was recently expanded in 2018 to accommodate our growing program. And we're now looking to expand that building again. Just about the operation of our school. We do have approximately 20 people who are working at the school. We have teaching faculty, we have bus drivers, we have administration, but we also have, as an association, we have a lot of people who are working as volunteers. Approximately 50 people are in regular titled volunteer positions. So that would be in our board of directors or various committees. We have coaches, we have a number of clubs that happen. So we have a lot of people who work to make this school happen on a day-to-day basis. When it comes to the financial support of the school, we have no government funding as an independent school. So our income is about 65% from tuition, but we also have a number of fundraising and donation drives, membership fees, and people who come to the school really know that they put in a sweat equity. We're an education cooperative. We work together to provide this kind of education for our students. We are a not-for-profit corporation, and we are a registered charity. As a school in our community, we do have plenty of opportunities for community involvement. We have a number of options for ways that we do that presented there. Some of our students are involved with Country Terrace. We recently had a club that did a neighborhood food drive around Thanksgiving. We have students who are working on community volunteer hours. You understand that that's part of the Ontario Diploma, and our students are actively involved in the community in that way. We also like to do trips like this where we are involved within the community, where our students learn and become good members, good citizens of our province and of our country. We also, as a community membership, we look for community use of our facilities, of our property. So we have an open space. Lots of people are using the facilities at 93 Queen Street. Even recently, we've been a polling station for the last provincial election, and it looks like we will be again for the next federal election. So we're active in our community. So I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Nywinning, who will present the proposal.
So this, excuse me. So my name is Will Nywinning, and I am a member of the board at PRC, as well as the parent of one of the students. The proposal is to expand the building substantially. You see there on the diagram, we have the existing structure, and then in behind that we would have the new structure. At the front would be an atrium. In the back, the main component would be a gymnasium. On the left-hand side would be shops and classes. Next slide, please. So just on the property, you would see it there. And you can see it is a substantial addition to the parking area as well as the building itself. Next slide, please. If you look at the layout, however, the main component is the gymnasium. And in the upper left corner there as well, we have some tech classes that would be created. Next slide, please. So the main reason for this is, one is we have been using space in the wellness center for our gym classes. As Kamoka is growing, as there's more demand for that services, we can't expect the municipality to budget that space and around our needs. It becomes increasingly hard for us to expect to be able to have you accommodate us in that way. And in that sense, we have to have our own gymnasium. Also, the Ontario Secondary School Diploma has introduced requirements for technology courses in the grade 9 and 10 classes. We don't have space that's suitable for that many classes and that many students for that type of class. Also, our food and nutrition classes have become very popular with the students. And we've been using space in the Kamoka Community Center for that, renting the kitchens there. But again, having an industrial kitchen would allow us to conduct those classes on site much more efficiently. Next slide, please. So I want to be very careful to ensure that we don't come here giving the impression that these are people who just don't want to pay their fair share. We acknowledge that development charges are very important for a developing community so that the infrastructure costs created by new development are not unduly borne by existing ratepayers. Next slide, please. That being said, the Development Charge Act and your bylaw do provide a number of land uses and situations where reduced rates or complete exemptions from development charges apply. These tend to be uses where it's deemed that these situations provide a greater societal benefit to the broader community, or uses that actually provide the types of facilities and amenities that the municipality is seeking to provide by collecting development charges, or uses that aren't deemed to be situations that create as much demand on services as others. In particular, schools are exempt from development charges. And sorry, my timer keeps running off on me here. Schools provide a lot of the amenity spaces, community meeting spaces, sports fields, indoor, outdoor recreational facilities that development charges are collected by the municipality to provide exactly those types of things. Parkview School in Kamoka is a very large and relatively new school, quite a bit larger than PRC, even with our addition. No development charges would have been paid by Parkview. Next slide, please. So our problem is that when the Development Charge Act exempts schools, the language it uses is lands owned by a Board of Education. Technically, as a private school, an independent school, we don't meet that definition. I don't think that when the development charges bylaw was created, the intent was we have some private schools, we need to make sure we get development charges from them when they if they ever expand. If you look at the definition of your institutional uses in the bylaw, it includes things like long-term care facilities. Doesn't say anything about schools. Development charges generally weren't expected to be charged to schools, but we're also not meeting the technical definition of school under Board of Education. We're not industrial, we're not commercial, we're not agricultural. We fall through the cracks. We get caught in the broad net of other non-residential uses. Based on the size of our addition, we're looking at $250,000 in development charges. Next slide, please. So our request is that we be treated the same as other schools and exempted from development charges. Other legislation treats us the same as any other school. Your own zoning bylaw defines us as public and private schools as equivalent land uses. We're asking two things, that you waive the development charge bylaw, but also that you amend your bylaw so that private schools are exempt and development charges aren't payable. Next slide. Sorry, next slide, please. So there's quite a few reasons listed there to exempt PRC that we've touched on already. One thing that I really want to emphasize is development charges, if they're collected from us, are intended so that you can provide us services that we need as part of that expansion. Ironically, the primary need for this facility is the gymnasium, which is triggered by our no longer having access to existing community facilities because of growth and demand in the community for those facilities. Next slide, please. So to amend the bylaw, which we're asking, the timing is perfect because your development charge background study was just completed. Your bylaw was just passed. You have a 1-year window within which you can make amendments to that bylaw without having to go back out and do a new development charge study by Watson and Associates. The only thing that's required is for you to advertise a public meeting at a regular council meeting and then adopt an amendment if you're willing to do that. Next slide, please. In terms of financial impact to the municipality, my understanding, you'll want to check this with your staff. My understanding is that if you were to simply waive a development charge, then you have to take what would have been payable from somewhere in your budget and put that into your reserve. If, however, it's not payable in the first place, so for instance, the reduced rate you give on agricultural, the development charges that you never collected from Parkview when it was built, those are just never payable in the first place. So there's no direct cost to the municipality's budget in that sense if you amend the bylaw. And that's why we are suggesting that not just waive the development charges, but also amend your bylaw in that sense. Next slide, please. So I just have to say it's a lot of money, and it's especially a lot of money to us as a community. We haven't really advertised that we're making this request to council amongst our community. But if we could come to our community and say that council did this for us, I just can't tell you what it would mean to our community. Not just in terms of the money and making us that much closer to making this financially possible for the community, but just in a bigger sense of just that acknowledgement that we exist in the community and that we are valued by the community for what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll look to council then. Questions on the presentation? I'll start over here with Councillor Burrs.
So I've read everything that you've stated. Someone else will make a motion on this. we did this in the summer. We had this whole development charges study in the summer. We had public consultations. We didn't hear anything from you as to input into that process. Now you're asking us to redo it, and we just did it in the summer. So that's a bit of a concern for me. My opinion on this is, I know you want you're a substantial asset to the community. I don't think you truly understand how development charges work in a pooled concept. I would be in favor of, and I won't make a motion, but I'll throw it out there, that our chief financial officer write a report on the pros and cons of accepting or denying this proposal, and we bring it up at another council meeting. So I'll back out of it now.
I have Councillor Arts next.
Through your Madam Mayor to, great. Terrible with names. To, Michael and Will, I believe. 6 years ago, I didn't know what a development charge was. I've had quite an education in the last few years. There's statutory, non-statutory exemptions. And the Board of Education is a statutory exemption, but whatever that exemption is, we still have to put into the reserve fund. So if whatever, and any of those statutory ones are government mandated, but still, if it's 200,000 exemption, we have to put $200,000 from the municipality's money into the reserve fund. So I'd just like to clarify that it does cost us money. And Tiffany can verify that or tell me I got it all wrong.
Right, so thank you. So through your Mayor DeVete, yes, any development charge exemptions, whether statutory or discretionary, do have to be funded. The Development Charge Act is not clear on this issue, and it is something that's being discussed at many municipalities. There's been multiple legal opinions provided, and we have worked directly with the Municipal Finance Officers Association on this. Some municipalities do not fund any exemptions. Some municipalities only fund discretionary exemptions, and some municipalities fund statutory and discretionary. This municipality does fund all exemptions until such time there is an Ontario regulation that comes out that is specific with the fact that that does not need to happen. The way the Development Charge Act is written is that the development charges have to be made whole. And so the way that our consultant has interpreted that, as well as us, has been that all of those are funded. The municipality does fund exemptions on a yearly basis. And even in the process right now, as the municipality is also exempt as a statutory exemption from development charges, with our municipal renovation, we will be funding that exemption in this year. So that is our current process. Should legislation come out that is very clear that it does not have to be funded, those would be transferred out of the development charge reserve funds and back into their individual reserve funds within the municipality. But that is not the direction I've received at this time.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Cates.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mike and Will. First of all, I want to thank you for coming today and for your presentation, and thank you for all the civics class having their tour here. I do, and thank you for I've been twice now for a tour there, and Arnie and I came to see what your addition will be all about, and it is very exciting, and your tech needs and cooking classes and all of that stuff. So I really enjoyed having an inside look at that. I do also, I want to acknowledge you in the community. You know, I don't live too far away, so I drive by there all the time and see the kids walking to the gym and things like that. So I do want to acknowledge you and for what you provide to your students. I would like to make a motion that we ask Tiffany to do a report, bring a report back to council on what this would mean for what this would mean if we were to the pros and cons of this proposal that you're making. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? we have two people that have already made a suggestion. I think I could go ahead and ask. So we have a motion. We
Well,
have to
yeah,
get the word
okay.
across.
Is the motion to accept the report and also the ask? Is that it?
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a mover and a seconder. Okay, and I'll call a vote then. Can we?
No, let's
Yeah,
clarify
give-
what the motion is.
Okay, do you want to put it in?
I can help.
Yeah,
The motion is to accept their letter or proposal. And the second part of that is to ask our chief financial officer to write a report on the pros and cons of, either accepting or denying this. What are the financial implications to us? I think we need that to make a good decision on it, okay?
Clear to me.
clear? Okay, so I have Councillor Burrs and then Councillor Cates. I can call the vote. All in favor of doing that? And that is carried. Okay. And I'll extend my thanks too for taking time for coming. And I think bringing everyone from the class is a great idea. Appreciate the audience and we would welcome that. It's really good for people to see how things work. And so I applaud your efforts in this regard as well. So I guess you'll be hearing or seeing on the agenda our reports. So until next time, thank you. Okay, we'll just take a quick break. So are you staying or are you wanting to depart? Okay, because we can take a quick recess if you want to leave, and if not, then we'll continue. We'll take a quick recess. Okay, we'll wait till you're all out. Thank you. Okay, so I'll leave it to staff when. Okay, we're back from a short recess and we're going to continue now with our final delegation. We have Kelly Ziegner here from United Way to provide an update presentation. So when you're ready, I'm going to turn mine off. You can go ahead.
Terrific. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council for accepting my delegation today to give you an update about your United Way. United Way Elgin Middlesex serves the counties, both Elgin and Middlesex and all the communities in between. Next slide, please. We are 100% local. So that means what's raised local in your local communities stays local and gets put to good work right throughout our region. Next slide, please. So you'd be maybe surprised to know and relieved to know, given the other agenda items that preceded me, that I'm not here to ask you for money. As a United Way. Rather, I'm here to thank you and thank the members of your community and your region for all of their commitment to our local United Way. So as I was driving here this morning, I'm seeing schools like Oxbow, I'm seeing corporate partners like Coldstream Concrete, who make significant contributions to United Way every year. And so we're very, very thankful and grateful for that significant commitment to the entire region, but particularly Middlesex Centre and Middlesex County. Next slide, please. So this just gives you an idea of what we invest every year in our local region. So for the next 2 years, we're on a 2-year granting cycle. We're investing $4.6 million throughout the region in these particular impact areas. So kids at 15%, communities and healthy communities and supports at 36%, and then poverty to possibility at 49%, which probably isn't a surprise given the economic times and challenges that individuals and families have found themselves in recently. 2 years ago, we went to an open call for proposals and grants. So I ask you to keep that in mind. We used to be perceived, I suppose, as a little bit of a closed shop. So once you got a grant from United Way, it happened in perpetuity, which, for some agencies provided a little bit of stability, but it also meant that newer programs, growing communities did not have access to United Way funding in the same way that others did. So now we go to a completely open call for proposals, and that happens every 2 years and is available on our website. So keep that in mind as your region continues to grow and have new organizations pop up that are supporting the needs of your residents. Next slide, please. Another way that we provide value to local communities beyond what you know us for of raising money and investing it back into local agencies is doing public policy and advocacy. And I often use, and I've been telling this parable a lot lately about 2 friends having lunch by the river, and one of them sees, a baby coming down the river struggling, and one friend goes and grabs the baby and pulls them out, and then all of a sudden they see another baby, and it just keeps happening and happening, and the friends keep, pulling these babies out of the river, and then all of a sudden one starts running away and says, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "We have to get these babies out of the river." And he says, "I'm going to see who's throwing the babies in the river." And what we're finding, and when we talk to local municipalities, is the social issues that we're finding, the social pressures that you're contributing to escalating police costs, are those that should be dealt with higher levels of government through our provincial and federal government, healthcare spending, mental health care spending on social assistance rates. When all of those issues are not dealt with, those are the issues that turn into social issues that come back on local streets and local communities. And so we are, open to being a partner on advocacy when you are making connections with upper levels of government when it comes to social issues. So if there's something that's coming to bear that you're seeing as a trend in your community, talk to United Way, because we're often dealing with policymakers as well at all three levels of government and are happy to have those conversations jointly. Next slide, please. So this year, our annual United Way campaign is kicked off, and you'll hear and see us out in the community talking about some of our priorities that as we see them right now. So we're reducing and preventing poverty. We know that social assistance rates in our province are wholly inadequate and are contributing to many of the challenges that we're seeing in local communities. And so our network of social service agencies, 44 programs across the region, are doing their best to help families through those really tough times by providing emergency and basic needs like food, shelter, clothing, the things that people need when things that they need at their moment of need. So too often we're hearing that there's more month than money for far too many families. And of course, housing is seems to be what's on everybody's mind these days, including our local United Way. So we're working closely with the agencies that we currently fund, who provide supported housing, largely in larger communities like St. Thomas and London. Though right now we are involved with Strathroy Caradoc on developing a housing project in that community that will be United Way led. So it's very much in its infancy stage, but we have a panel of community sort of leaders, including the mayor, local politicians, emergency services, helping us to develop that housing plan with Strathroy Caradoc. Next slide, please. The final piece I want to leave you with is 2-in-1 Ontario. So United Ways across the province are significant partners and funders of 2-in-1. 2-in-1 is a phone line similar to 911 or 311 you have in different communities, except 2-in-1 is to help people find community and social services in their local community. It's available 24/7 in multiple languages. So it's interesting to hear when you are having a conversation around policing, and some of those challenges. This can be an opportunity for diversion of emergency calls, where people maybe are struggling, perhaps a mental health crisis. They can call 2-in-1 as their first point of contact. So we're working with communities across our region to get the word out about this. We have lots of promotional materials available. We have folks that are able to come and speak to groups about, the importance of using 2-in-1 so that you're making the right call at the right time and not tying up emergency services. Next slide, please. Apologize for the busy slide here. The other really great thing about 2-in-1 is they do track everything quite closely. So this is a screenshot from a report I looked at today. You can look at 2-in-1 Ontario data and drill down to a county level and even down to Middlesex Centre level. So you can see from this report, since January 1st, there have been 20 calls from 2-in-1 from Middlesex Centre residents. The majority of the black line there is people looking for assistance paying utilities, which is interesting because when we look at the county on whole, the number one issue is housing. So it speaks to an affordability issue that you may be seeing with your local residents. So again, this could be really, while we want to get those call numbers up because we want people to be calling this line instead of, tying up municipal services or your emergency services. This could be helpful data as you develop proposals for upper levels of government because you can talk or other funders around what you're seeing the needs are, and it's data informed. Next slide, please. Really, just wanted to, offer our support as your local United Way in the work that you do. And, you note that we are open and willing partners and really looking to, further, develop our supports and our commitments in our entire region. I think for many years, we have been, prior, United Way London and Middlesex, and I would say the end Middlesex was sort of not as intentional in the work that we were doing. When we merged with United Way Elgin St. Thomas, the real benefit we saw there is the entire Elgin County Board merged into ours and really gave us deep insights into some of the challenges that smaller, more rural communities were facing. And we, in our current strategic plan, we have a real focus on developing those regions more closely. Next slide, please. And just want to say again, thank you for accepting my delegation today and for the generosity of your local residents. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll look to council then to ask questions. I'll start with you, Councillor Roers.
Through you, your worship. So how's United Way doing financially? Like, are we meeting the demands in the community through fundraising? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I will say it's been challenging times, right? And it's a bit of a double-edged sword for us because on one hand, as we do a lot of our fundraising, as I mentioned, through, grassroots fundraising, local workplaces where people give a little bit, $2 off their pay. And if you're having to remortgage your house, in the past couple of years, folks don't have as much to give. And at the same time, we're seeing the need explode on the other hand. When we did that last open call for proposals, the ratio of funds requested to funds available was 3-1. So for every dollar we had to invest, we had requests for $3. So it really speaks to the significant need and all really, really valuable proposals, good ideas. And it's probably the most challenging volunteer job you will ever have is deciding where those funds are going to go.
Is there anyone else? I'll just add a comment then. I was, my ears really perked up when you noted your awareness of funding coming from the appropriate level of government is something that people around this horseshoe, we look at that all the time. The delegations we make at, say, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario annual conference, we feel we get downloaded on, and AMO's working on that now, the Social and Economic Prosperity Review. We only have our residents. I mean, they're the ones that are paying the bills, so I can totally relate to your comments about that, and we appreciate you coming today and outlining the need for not just money but help too, I think. So we appreciate your time and all the work you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So we are now done the delegations, and we can get into the meeting more. Before we adopt the minutes, I'm going to provide opening remarks to the council meeting. Yes. We're not going there. Okay. This council meeting, yes, we're going to start here. Okay, so just before Mrs. A, we've got a couple of things we want to highlight. So to make sure that we're always prepared for an emergency, Middlesex Centre Emergency Control Group takes part in an annual training exercise. This year, our training exercise was held with other municipalities in Luc and Biddulph, and some of our staff were there and volunteered to play a role of displaced residents in the scenario. I would like to thank everyone who joined the training and particularly acknowledge our own Arnie Marsman, who received the coveted Tin Ham Award for his fine acting skills, and to Megan Kammermans for her also stellar performance. We really knocked it out of the park, guys. Thank you so much. And although these exercises are a lot of fun, they are important in ensuring that everyone knows what needs to happen when the worst happens, and ensures that the gaps in service and safety are identified and addressed. So there was a lot of learning from even Arnie's escapades as a senior. So, and then moving on, council grants. As a member of council, we know the value of nonprofit community groups bring to our well-being here in Middlesex Centre. If you're a member of a community organization that has a great idea for a public project or an event, you may be eligible for funding for support under the Council Grants Program. Grants of up to $5,000 are available for tourism, community life, the arts, culture, and heritage, as well as sustainability projects. Applications are due by November 30th and can be found on our municipal website. And Remembrance Day is coming up. I'd like to remind everyone that our local branches of the Royal Canadian Legion will be holding Remembrance Day ceremonies across the communities. And there's one in Ilderton on November 10th. That's Sunday. In Delaware on November 11th in the morning, and Poplar Hill on November 11th in the afternoon. And these all take place at the community center. So members of the public are welcome to attend these events to observe, honor, and remember Canada's fallen veterans and those who continue to serve. And more details are available on the website, 3 o'clock, 10:30, or 10:30 and 1:30. So, but if you're checking, you'll get that, and you'll be sure to get there on time. And last but not least, I want to take a moment to recognize our Chief Building Official, Arnie Marsman, for his exceptional contributions to the 2024 Ontario Building Officials Conference in London. Arnie played a key role in coordinating the sponsorship portion of the conference, and his efforts in sourcing prizes for the charity event were particularly noteworthy. Thanks to his hard work, we successfully raised an impressive $7,300 for Ronald McDonald House Charities, making a significant impact on the families that benefit for their services. So thanks again. Well done, Arnie. Okay, so that is that part. We can now move to the adoption of the minutes. The motion before us is that the minutes of October 16th, 2024, council be adopted as printed. Thank you, Councillor Shipley and Councillor Burrs. All in favor? And that is carried. We have 8 items on the consent agenda. I look to council. Is there anything here okay, hands are flying up. I'll start here and go down the table. Go ahead, Deputy.
Yeah, just 2 items, 7.1. I just want to congratulate all the staff that are sitting on external boards around the horseshoe here. There's 8 or 9 of them that are on provincial appointments and that. So we appreciate them stepping up and representing us and the rest of the Ontario on some of these boards. So thank you for doing that. And the second, I just looked to Tiffany if she would just do a quick update on the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund for 2025. That what we're going to be getting in that. Thank you.
So through you, Mayor DeVete. So the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. So thankfully we did receive this information earlier this year than we have in the past. So it has been included in our 2025 budget. This amount, the municipality normally uses this amount for our bridges and culverts, that work that's being done through our asset management plan. So in 2024, our asset management coordinator had provided the updated information for the current replacement values, so the CRVs as noted in the report, to the province as requested. With all the work that we've been doing on the asset management plan, and thank you to our asset management coordinator, Aubrey, all of our amounts are increasing based on actual costs and what those assets are going to cost to replace, as well as for the completeness of that report. The completeness is getting better each year, and so more assets are being included. With that, that amount that we sent in for the current replacement values was significantly higher than it was in the past. And using that information, the province has created our Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund amount for our 2025 budget. And this has increased for the municipality. It's an increase of about 15% or $250,000, which is great to see. The total amount included in our 2025 budget is $1.9 million. And that is up from the 1.6, 1.7 million in 2024. We're back to the amounts that we had prior to 2024. If you remember in 2024, it did decrease by the 15%. However, we're back around that 1.9 million, which is great news for this municipality, and it will definitely help as we are building the 2025 budget. For the 2025 budget, I do believe this funding is going towards multiple projects, but they do all fall into that bridges and culverts. With the report, the information on how it's calculated is provided. And the province does go over that in some detail. And at this point, I'll ask if there's any other questions.
That's okay. Councillor Burrs, covered off. Anyone else? Okay, in that case, the motion before us is that the consent items 7.1 through 7.8 listed on the November 6th, 2024 agenda be adopted as recommended. Councillor Cates and Councillor Arts, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, now we will move to staff reports. The first item up is an update to our complaint handling policy and the R zone policy, and our clerk, James Hudson, is going to provide that report.
Well, thank you, and through the chair. The purpose of this report is to bring forward revisions to the existing complaint handling policy and R zone policies. These policies were originally established in 2016 and 2014 respectively. The amendments proposed are designed to modernize the existing policies that are in place. By way of background, a complaint policy is required under Ontario legislation via the Public Sector and Accountability and Transparency Act. A policy was adopted in 2016 to comply with this legislation, which was introduced at that time. There have been no updates or reviews to that policy in the 8 years since it was established. The 2016 version is included in the report. The revised policy expands upon the processes for complaint submission and review by establishing a procedure for informal and formal complaint investigation. It adds in an appeal processee and helps to codify roles and responsibilities. I would note that we've received an item of correspondence requesting deferral of the proposed updates, and this correspondence has been shared with members. I think at that time, I'll turn it over to council for consideration, and I'm available here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that, James. I will look to council then. Questions on this? Go ahead, Councillor Burrs. Wait a minute, you need to push your button.
We've all been presented with this letter from a Mr. Doug McCrae. He had concerns about this policy, concerns that the councillor for Ilderton wasn't present. She is coming on. Do we see any reason, can the clerk maybe comment, do we have any reason to not proceed with voting on this based on this letter? Did you follow what I said?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, that's a tough question for me to answer. I can't, I don't want to influence your vote one way or the other. What I can say is the policy review was initiated earlier in 2025. So this review has been taking place for a few months now. The policy was originally established in 2016. So it's a dated policy. It's common that we would look at making these updates to the policy at this time. And from what I can see, from what I see here, it really expands upon that policy. It takes what we had in 2016 and it expands further. It puts together some dedicated processes for informal and formal complaints, which is right now, if you read the 2016 version, it doesn't have that level of detail of what happens for someone when they submit a complaint. So I think from that perspective, it helps provide more detail on the process involved with it.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor to James, I had similar questions that Frank did, but I don't appreciate stuff showing up at the last minute. I don't have much time to read it, but this policy is going to be better than what we had. So I'm in favor of moving forward with it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I will read the motion then. The motion is that the report CLK 09-2024 update to complaint handling policy and R zone policy be received, and that council approve the revised complaint handling policy and revised R zone policy dated November 6th, 2024, appended to the report that we're dealing with. I have Councillor Burrs and Councillor Shipley. Thank you. All in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Okay, I don't have any notices of motion And there's no change to that. Next up are correspondence items. There are a number here. Would anyone want to comment? I see your hand, Councillor Burrs.
Yes, can we pull 10.4 in light of our discussion with Inspector Stewart? I think council wants to consider probably supporting what's this, the municipality of Tweedsmuir or something, their proposal. I would make another comment that this is the province of Ontario that negotiates with the OPP, and I think they're kind of negligent in not getting on it right away and then letting it build up to the point. So I think they should pay a hunk of this going forward, but you know, our AMO representative will probably take care of that. So let's pull it and discuss it.
Okay, we can do that, right? So discuss that. Okay, do we want to do that first? I think so. Okay, let's pull that out and have a conversation then. Okay, well, I can jump in with respect to AMO. That's the document that you see appended to this motion, that tweet document. Actually, when you read it, you'll see that the whole thrust of that really is to ask the province to, well, I guess, simply quit downloading costs on municipalities and make sure that the responsibility for policing for Ontario Provincial Police is funded at the right level. So I'm open to comments or others. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor, they have a point, but they also want it 100% covered. And I think that's not exactly responsible either. Like, we do have programs where we get money from them. I know they're the ones that set, but if you do 100%, give up 100%, if you pay for nothing, don't ask for, all of a sudden things aren't, you can't control anything either. I think they have a good idea, but I think they've just gone too far. Thank you. Oops, sorry.
There's no one else? Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
So where are we, Hugh? What are we thinking, that there should be some sort of litmus test on this and that you might get a portion depending on the municipality and their needs?
I'm not for sure, Frank, but I mean to say that the government, I'm a taxpayer. I'm going to pay for this, whether I pay it through the municipality or through my, and to say, yeah, we don't want anything to do with it, you look after it. I don't think that's responsible either. I think you got to have some skin in the game. So yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Cates.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I don't disagree with what Hugh's saying either, but at the same time, I think that it's also about the downloading. The continuous downloading. They negotiated it and then they pass it on to us. I think I read something about AMO putting together something about this, if I'm not mistaken. And where does it fall in the same line as this, of the whole thing? Maybe we can't answer that. Oh,
Just to say, I think that's something that we'll be talking about at the next AMO meeting. There's an executive meeting tomorrow on Thursday. But I don't know that the staff people at AMO have started looking at this in detail. So I'm not under the, there hasn't been a consultation yet, I don't think, with municipalities of any kind.
Yeah, through the chair, Councillor Cates, the mayor's correct. I think for council's consideration at this point, correspondence is on the agenda. And if it's council's wish to communicate our concerns to the province, is probably a good thing to do, because the more information they receive from the member municipalities to put on the radar of this conversation is how the mayor's advising that it will be discussed and brought forward and advocated. So I think for council's wish right now is to decide if it makes sense, and I think it does, to just, support the request, and we can convey this information back to AMO.
If I could just add to that, yeah, in response to Councillor Art's comment, the problem, we only have one source of revenue really, and that source of revenue isn't indexed to inflation, and it's not indexed. Like, we have no way of increasing that. The only way we can get more money into our budget really is to ask taxpayers to give it to us. And now, I mean, we're paying for all kinds of healthcare that we didn't use to pay, like, the province has investments in other sources of revenue. It doesn't make sense to throw everything at municipalities that are handcuffed by the sources of revenue, and that those sources of revenue are sort of handcuffed in the financial world. It doesn't fluctuate with anything, or we can't increase it. It's strictly what we can bill people. So, yes, go ahead, Councillor Cates.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I agree. I will make the motion, support this, because I think that saying something is better than saying nothing at all. Not to split hairs on how much it is, it's that we don't agree and do something about it.
And I think you've made a good point there, and in conjunction with Councillor Arts, this can be a conversation. Maybe it's split so that these costs are yours because of this and these are ours, or we're not saying we're throwing it to you, catch the ball and run with it. Be nice if we could do that, but I think it's more realistic to say there's a conversation about how costs are allocated and split and who has responsibility for which piece. So, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what I don't know about policing. So yes, go ahead,
Just a
Councillor
further
Burrows.
comment. So this is like an opening that may create some negotiation, but the point for me here is they drag their feet on these negotiations, leading to the point where all this back drag is coming to us. And secondly, we're not at the table. We don't have any say in the negotiation. So whether that's an emo sitting at the table with the province to negotiate this or whatever, it would be nice to have some say in it, wouldn't it? I don't know where that's gonna go or anything's gonna go, but the conversation has to be opened.
You'll be happy to know Frank and Celia changed my mind, so.
Well, we have a motion. Do we have a seconder? Okay, go ahead, Hugh. Okay, Councillor Arts is seconding. I'll call the vote. All of in favor. Okay, and that is unanimous, sir. Okay, thank you, Council. Is there any other item on the correspondence list that we should talk to, or? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like 10.1 pulled and make a motion to support that recommendation they have there. So
I'll just read that motion then,
Yes.
so everyone's aware. And it is that the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre support the request initiated by the Osable Bayfield Conservation Authority with respect to reversing the decision of the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry of Ontario, Graydon Smith, to freeze the fees conservation authorities can charge in regard to planning, development, and permitting fees, and that the Mayor of the Council of the Municipality Middlesex Centre be authorized to sign onto a letter of support prepared on behalf of the elected leaders of the municipalities of the Osable Bayfield Conservation Authority, otherwise known as ABCA. And I think you've moved that. Councillor Shipley has moved. Councillor Cates seconds. All in favor of that? And that is carried. There's none opposed. Okay, so that just, so we've done 10.1 and 10.4. So we have a motion before us that we receive correspondence items 10.2, 3, 5, and 6. And a mover, please. Councillor Arts, thank you. Deputy Mayor Brennan, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. And I'll look to Councillor County. Look to the Deputy Mayor for an update at what happened at Council.
Thank you. This report comes from October 22nd council meeting. We were presented with the winter maintenance agreement that the county has with the city. Any roads that come out of the city and dead end halfway between concessions, they come all the way. The county does that on some of the other ones. It works out about the same amount of kilometers that the county covers for the city and the city covers for the county. And this is a 5-year agreement, and it includes plowing, salting, sanding in the wintertime. So that agreement has been and now put in place for 5 years. The warden had a report for July, August, and September on activities and events that the warden attended over those 3 months. It totaled 33 different events over those 3 months. The in-camera meeting was canceled. The library has some more new programs, Library for Life and programming for kids to try to keep the attendance up into the libraries. We had an action report from SWIFT, October the 8th, SWIFT, completed, fiber lines, 225 kilometers, 1,800 properties for a total cost of, $3.1 million, and that money was provided by the government to SWIFT to get, high-speed internet throughout the county on different roads. There was a request for some bridge work in Kamoka. Dylan was selected to do the engineering on this bridge at a cost of $109,000. Premier Truck Group came in with a bid of $427,000 for a snowplow truck with dump box spreader, snowplow harness, the whole works for $427,000, which was a good competitive. There's a lot of bids, and it was a good competitive bid, so we're happy with that. North Middlesex applied for the loan program through the county for $4.78 million for their new fire hall and ambulance station, but that was not approved. The Warden's banquet is November the 12th, and that's at 23rd. And long-term service medals are being given out, and the inauguration for the county will be on December the 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the deputy? I don't see any, and so we can now, we have a closed item agenda today, so we need a motion for, to go into that, and it is that the council for the municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourn to closed session at 11:12 pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss the following personal matters under 239(2)(b), personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and this relates to the CAO performance review and staffing update. And I have Councillor Cates, thank you, and Councillor Shipley, thank you. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. We'll take a few minutes to adjust our technology.